Did you see a recent story about an 18-year-old boy who convinced his parents to take him on the family's very first ever cruise? It was to celebrate graduating from high school. It cost the parents dearly as they broke an absolute fundamental cruise rule. While shopping in a Caribbean port after they'd been on an excursion, the boy kind of nagged and told his parents they should return to the ship because he'd noticed that there was an all-aboard time that was very, very soon and looming. The parents basically shrugged it off, saying that the ship wouldn't leave without all passengers. He wasn't convinced, so he left them. He returned to the ship. But by the time that the parents got to the port, much later, they found that the ship, along with their son, had sailed. It cost them an absolute fortune to join the ship at the next port. They were absolutely furious with both the captain for not waiting and their son for somehow not stopping him. This story of rule breaking and its consequences, it really got me thinking about other cruise rules that I see being broken often. It struck me that some of those rule breaking things bothered me and some did not. For while they might have nasty consequences for those involved, like for example those parents, many rule breakers and rule breaking doesn't directly affect my cruising experience. So I wondered if everybody felt the same. So I did a poll of cruisers and discovered there's 6 key rules that when broken drive cruisers crazy more than any others. And here they are. Let me start with the one that annoys cruisers the most. I was actually surprised, by the way, that this was the top, but 88% of cruisers, that's basically 9 out of 10, said this one drives them crazy. One threat cruisers face is with many people on one vessel, norovirus, the gastro illness that can cause vomiting and diarrhea. It can be spread fairly easily if passengers don't follow the simple prevention rules. There's a few rules passengers regularly break that can lead to outbreaks. First, before boarding, we're supposed to report if we have signs of norovirus, upset stomachs or vomiting. So then the medical team from the cruise line can assess us. But some people worry that they're going to be isolated for a couple of days in their cabin until it's passed, so they do not own up. Now, while this particular rule breaking annoyed people in the poll, the issue that actually drove most of them mad is not following the rules on stopping norovirus from spreading and basically causing an outbreak. And that is by washing hands frequently, especially after using the bathroom and before going to the buffet, or if not hand washing, using the hand gel, which is a fairly good alternative. Now, norovirus spreads through touching a surface with it on and then touching one's mouth. So someone handling, for example, tongs in the buffet could actually spread it quite easily. Now, norovirus, when it breaks out, can cause really big issues on a cruise. For example, just before making this video, P&O Cruises Ventura had a really big outbreak. Some media reports saying that up to 250 passengers were affected and being made to quarantine, of course, ruining their trip. Rigorous following of the hand washing and the gel rule should have been able to stop or certainly slow this down. That's why this rule breaking drives so many cruisers mad. Now, I suspected this next rule breaking would be high on the list, and it was, with 81% of cruise passengers saying it really, really grates them. Yes, 8 out of 10 cruisers said that others reserving seats and chair hogging drives them crazy. Every cruise line I've ever been on has rules about this. From the most upmarket small ship line to the largest resort line, every daily program constantly asks passengers to stop reserving seats on the pool deck and in the theatre. On many ships' pool decks, I also see signs about not reserving deck chairs and lounges as well. Most cruise lines have rules saying a lounger with personal effects on that's not been used for a set amount of time, often say 40 minutes, will have those items removed. However, this rule is just not followed by many passengers. Partly because although cruise lines do say they will enforce the rule, most do not. And I can see why crew are reluctant to, because they basically will just end up getting so much hassle, so they don't do it. So many people know it's just worth breaking the rule because almost always they're going to get away with it. Now, every now and then a cruise line will say that they're clamping down, like Carnival and P&O Cruises UK did recently. They said they were going to get the crew to put notices with timestamps if they noticed that any lounger or chair was not being used and had items on it, and it would include the time on that document that they would remove the items. But from what I hear, that approach didn't last very long. The next rule breaking that upsets people, I think, has probably grown as an issue, with 75% of passengers saying this one is a big issue for them right now. Now, perhaps it's because more cruise lines are actively targeting and attracting more families after the cruise shut down in the last couple of years. I see more passengers complain about this set of rules being broken than ever before, with lines and crews apparently reluctant to actually enforce the rules. Now, I saw this firsthand on a majestic Princess Alaska cruise last year, which I went on, that had loads and loads of families on, as normally happens in Alaska. The kids ran a bit crazy. They took over the adult-only pool. Babies and toddlers with diapers were using the swimming pool despite rules posted against it. Kids constantly filled the hot tubs again, despite the signs with different age restrictions. They used and messed about in the gym again, despite rules like no under 16s allowed in there. And they would basically run about the ship in hallways all day and late into the evenings. Now, I have noticed on cruises since then that, I guess because rule breaking is presumably getting worse, a couple of lines have actually added more rules around families and kids. For example, on my recent Norwegian Viva Mediterranean cruise and my Royal Caribbean Symphony of the Seas Caribbean cruise, both of them I noticed had introduced a curfew, with children aged 17 and under not allowed unaccompanied anywhere on the ship after 1 a.m. And there were actually constant reminders in the daily program and in the daily kind of captain updates, reminding parents to basically supervise and ensure that the rules were being followed. Talking of disruptions around the ship, the next set of rule breakers were the next biggest thing that I saw in the poll drove cruise passengers who've booked a balcony cabin crazy, with 58% or around 6 out of 10 saying that this one really got them steamed up. There are a few specific rules around cruise ship balconies, including things that can spill over to affect people's balconies next to, above or below the people breaking the rules. Now, in the embarkation safety briefing, I've noticed that the captain always lays down several balcony rules, 2 of which really rile up passengers if they are broken. Almost every cruise line does not allow smoking nor vaping in the cabin or the balcony. But inevitably, as I often find, there's occasionally people that vape or smoke cigarettes, or in fact, I've noticed even something stronger, on their balconies. And it wafts, of course, onto the neighboring balconies. There is also a safety reason cruise lines have banned smoking, to avoid more incidents of fires being caused by people throwing cigarette butts, which they thought were out, over the side of the ship. The most dramatic of these was on the Old Star Princess in the Caribbean, where it's believed a cigarette was thrown overboard. It was blown back into another balcony, setting the furniture and the dividers on the balcony alight. It led to 1 passenger dying, 11 people being injured, and over 100 cabins burnt and damaged. But loud and raucous behaviour on the balcony is also something that has grown as an issue. I faced this on that Royal Caribbean Symphony of the Seas cruise that I spoke about a little bit earlier, with loud music and partying on the balcony below me. Now, this trend has led to lines to target the ability to play loud music with more rules. For example, recently Carnival Cruise Line announced that large speakers and radios were prohibited from the fleet, and they'll actually be confiscated and what they call discarded, whatever that means. They also added a rule that all guests must use earphones when listening to music or watching shows and movies on their kind of iPads, phones, whatever, in public spaces. Bluetooth, portable and wireless speakers are only permitted to be used within the stateroom, and they're not allowed on the balcony. And even when they're being played within the cabin, they need to be played at what they called a respectful sound level and at respectful times of the day. I've seen reports of people being thrown off ships partway through cruises for breaking the smoking and loud music on balcony rules. So as well as driving fellow guests like me crazy, the consequences could be devastating and of course rather costly. Then of course there's the other rules the captain reminds passengers about when it comes to balconies, like not leaving items like towels or clothes on the balcony due to the risk of them kind of being blown off into the ocean and causing basically a threat of damaging sea life. Now on this next rule, I have been affected by this on a few cruises in the last 18 months. So I'm one of the 37% of passengers that really gets annoyed by the next rule breakers too. It is a rule the captain also always lays out in their embarkation day briefing. There's a sign above the toilet reminding about the rule, and often in the daily program too. It is of course about the toilets. Cruise ship toilet plumbing system is a suction-based one, and it's easily blocked if anything is flushed down the toilet other than the supplied toilet paper and kind of natural human waste. The main culprits for blockages, by the way, on those cruises that I've been on have apparently been sanitary products and wipes. I've been on several cruises where the toilets in my section stopped working for a period of time because people have broken that simple rule, and it's quite disruptive. Having no toilet while waiting for the plumbers to then kind of unblock the pipes. They have to remove panels in the hallway to get to the pipes, and it really is quite annoying overall. The next rule breakers I thought would be way more annoying based on the amount of discussion and argument that they cause on things like Cruise Critic and on cruise Facebook groups, although only 33%, that's 3 out of 10, said it really winds them up, but it is one that's really controversial. And this is when passengers do not follow the cruise line dress codes. Now, while it only annoys a relatively smaller number of passengers, as I've mentioned, opinions run really high, and passengers are really divided on this whole rule and rule breaking. Now, one camp argues that they choose a specific cruise line because of the ambiance that a certain dress code creates. So, for example, some people choose Cunard, and I choose Cunard sometimes because it's renowned for its dressing up nights with kind of glamorous gowns, black tie tuxedos. It creates a whole ambience. Even on the more casual nights, there's still a fairly smart dress code, and that's kind of what the cruise line's about. Now, the people in this camp argue that if you don't want to follow the dress code rules of a cruise line, then why not consider other lines? So, for example, you could go to Norwegian or Disney, which basically don't have a dress code rule. You could wear shorts perfectly fine for dinner. Though most cruise lines do have dress code rules, and as there are rules, some really simply get annoyed when they get broken because they argue there is a code, there is a rule. Now, those who don't care if people break the rules argue that others shouldn't be bothered by what other people around them are wearing, and it shouldn't affect their enjoyment of a cruise. Now, while I don't get hugely annoyed by passengers kind of basically breaking the dress code rule, I'm probably more in the camp that feels if the cruise line has a dress code rule and it's made clear when booking, then simply it should be followed and they should enforce it. If the cruise lines don't want a dress code, they don't want a dress code rule, they shouldn't have one, and perhaps they could just lay down what's kind of not acceptable. Perhaps certain things may not be acceptable to wear. Now, for example, when I go on Cunard, I choose Cunard because I'm in the mood to go on an itinerary where I'm going to be dressing up and I feel very smart. So let me give you an example. The cruise that I'm on right now, that I'm recording this on, is a Viking cruise in Alaska. And I chose it partly because I didn't want to come to Alaska and have to dress up, because the place and the ports were the main focus of this cruise. And Viking have a pretty relaxed dress code, which is basically a collared shirt and no jeans in the main dining room, although they're not really bothered if you do actually wear jeans. Now, I could have booked a similar itinerary, pretty much identical itinerary, on Cunard Queen Elizabeth, that's also in Alaska, but I didn't because I didn't want to have to follow those dress code rules when I was in Alaska. There were several more serious rules that I see getting broken frequently, but like me, other cruises in the poll didn't rate them high at all on an annoyance level, which I realized they did for all of those because they didn't affect their cruising experience directly, even though there's some pretty serious rules in there. Things like people taking food off the ship in ports where countries ban this to protect their environments, and particularly in places like the Arctic, Antarctica, Greenland, or people trying to bring banned items on board, having fights and those kind of things. So while they support these kind of rules, they kind of shrug them off, because while the consequences for the rule breakers are going to be high, they hardly ever affect them, and that's kind of the camp that I I'm basically in. Now, while I've spoken here about formal cruise line rules that passengers break, did you know there are also unspoken cruise rules that experienced cruisers know, and they expect other passengers to follow them? If you don't know what they are, why don't you join me over in this video where I talk about them, starting with the one that causes more arguments than any other. See you over there.